Francois has joined me on stage because we're about to welcome here someone that you know, of course, deeply, but she will give us actually a more technical insight about what trust means when it comes to cybersecurity, when it comes to our devices and to our private data.
Yeah, thank you, Marjorie, and I want to thank our Accenture colleagues. Yes, it's a pleasure, and a pleasure because she's a friend for a long time, and honor because she exemplifies the French success on the world stage. She's been living in Mexico, in the US, in UK, and now back in France. She's been in companies like Telemex, Global One, Equant, Orange, and last, GSMA as a CEO. She's the CEO of Morpho. It's the identity and security group of Safran. So it's really my pleasure to welcome my friend Anne BOUVEROT on the stage. So Anne, if you could come and see us. So Anne, you have lots of activity going on. This morning at 9 o'clock, the Safran boat was number 6 on the Vendée Globe. And the reason I say that is we have the skipper of NG somewhere, Sébastien Rogue. He will be with us tonight. So we have a big passion for sailing. And second, I've heard some rumors about some acquisition merge. Can we trust those rumors?
Rumors about, yeah, there's plans. We cannot say that for sure things would happen because we're awaiting a number of approvals from government, antitrust, etc. But there's a potential acquisition of Morpho by Advent International to create, through the combination with Overture Technologies, a world leader in identification technologies. So not certain, but something that we very much hope will happen, and will create a world leader in France, a French company leading digital security.
So you will win the Vendée Globe then?
I don't know whether that's the thing that gets you to win the Vendée Globe, but I very much hope so.
Okay. The stage is yours. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Francois.
You might need this as well.
And I will get the clicker. I'll go back. I have my 2 assistants, the clicker and the smartphone. I will try to do something very dangerous on stage at the end, which is a live demo. But before that, we'll go through a few slides. So over the next 20 minutes or so, I want to try and take you on a journey through digital identity and why is digital identity important in today's world. Well, as citizens, as consumers, today we are used to having to prove our identity on a regular basis. When we go to vote, this is election time, when we go to open a bank account, when we travel. But more and more, we get used to doing this in the digital world. And as we need to prove our identities in the digital world, it's a bit different. And the question becomes, how do we do that? And what technology can help us to do that? And those technologies, how secure are they? How convenient? How cost-effective? And how much do they protect our privacy? That's definitely a very important subject. So let's explore this a little bit. First of all, there's a very important subject, which is the difference between authentication and identification. Authentication, very simply, is the process of verifying an attribute. That attribute can be a username, a password, that can be a number linking you to a bank account or to any specific account. That's an attribute. That's not you, but that's something that's linked to you. And that's something that can be stolen. That's something that you can put on a post-it on your computer. We had a wonderful slide with lots of post-its. We do tend to do that. So this is something that is not hugely secure. Identification is the process of ensuring you know who the person is wanting to access a service. And this is much stronger because you get to validate that it is the person that you think can do this that is trying to do it. If we look at a couple of examples, authentication, absolutely fine for posting a tweet or a photo on Instagram or a number of other things. But what about more personal things? What about buying clothes? What about signing the contract? What about accessing health records or remotely logging into my house surveillance system. Those are things that, well, you want to be able to do. We all want to be able to do, but we would rather not have anyone else do instead of us. So the question is, how do we move from simple, weak authentication to stronger authentication and identification? And how do we do that for people? But also, as was explained this morning, and as we all know, this is the era of the Internet of Things, how do we identify objects and how do we identify people wanting to access objects or remotely control them? Think about drones, for example. You do want them to be controlled slightly. So, identity, identification, authentication. The digital identity imperative. Well, we lived through our smartphones. I couldn't even leave my seat without taking my smartphone. Okay, it's because I'm going to try and attempt a demo, but still, I feel more comfortable with my smartphone. Statistics say that we access our smartphones around 200 times a day. That's a lot. And that's growing. And transactions we make using those phones and tablets, we make more and more transactions. They're bigger, they're more complex. In the US, identity theft online, digital identity theft, is the fastest rising crime. I don't think this is something that's true just in the US. This is really something that we have to do something about. One of the things that companies and governments are doing is moving to multi-factor authentication, not just one username password, maybe an SMS on top of it with another password that is one that is just valid for the transaction that you have to enter. Maybe questions about your family circumstances or your personal lives, and then we get into the talk that Veselin was giving a little bit. So trying to increase the number of attributes. But then we need to go all the way for strong authentication to identity and to the person. And regulation, of course, is stepping up, and this is a good thing. Stefan of Accenture was mentioning the European regulation that has been updated to unify it at European level and to increase protection of data privacy. This is very important. So what are the benefits of strong digital identities? What are the benefits for people, for businesses, and for governments? Well, for people like you and I, it's the benefit of being able to securely do things online, making sure we protect our personal data, making sure we can access all sorts of data, services, transactions online without having to go and do things in the digital world, or in the physical world. For businesses, it's an opportunity to develop new services and generate new revenue sources. It's also an opportunity to reduce costs and to reduce fraud. And for governments, it's a way to modernize access to government services, e-government services, to reduce fraud, to increase efficiency, and to present a more modern image to citizens. Who are the actors in establishing the digital economy and making it a reality? Is this companies? Is this governments? Is this both? Does it depend on the part of the world that you're looking at this? In developing economies, we see governments taking sometimes a very strong stance and strong action towards establishing digital identity. They can do that and sometimes leapfrog systems that they don't have and systems that exist in the more developed world. In a minute, I will talk about India and the phenomenal program that they have launched there. In more developed economies, you can see governments working incrementally from existing identification systems, passports, national identity cards, driver's licenses, and working often with private companies to establish digital identity systems. And I will give an example of the UK. But what is true in all the examples and in all the cases in the world is that companies and governments have to work together. This has to be regulated, this has to be validated, and this also needs to dwell on the dynamism of both companies and governments. Let's move to the example of India and the Aadhaar program. In India, there's no national identity program, no identity cards for the population, no national registry of the population. In 2010, the government decided to launch the Aadhaar program in order to give to every citizen and resident a unique identification number. And the reason for that was to try and reduce fraud on government subsidies and government inclusion programs, because you can want to deploy vast amounts of money, but unless they reach exactly the individuals that you want to reach, you're not reaching your goal. So in 2010, they launched this program by which every resident would be enrolled with their fingerprints, their irises, their face, their facial biometric, and in exchange given a unique identification number, a unique Aadhaar number. As I say, that was used for government inclusion programs. As of April 2016, there are 1 billion people in India with a unique Aadhaar number. That's 93% of the adult population. This is an amazing milestone that has been reached in India. And this year, the government, and those are programs that go, and even if the government changes, clearly they're continued, the new government decided to launch a Digital India initiative, leveraging the Aadhaar program and enabling private companies to be able to develop applications and give access to citizens on the basis of this Aadhaar number. This is in particular being used for banking and for financial inclusion for people who wouldn't otherwise have a way to prove that they have either a credit history or a proof of residence or all the things that you have to give when you traditionally want to open a bank account. The World Bank estimates that through the Aadhaar program, India is reaching annual savings of around $1 billion in avoided fraud and cost efficiency. So this is an amazing example in a developing country of leapfrogging and getting straight to digital identity. Let me come back closer to, I was going to say closer to Europe, but though after Brexit, I'm not sure. Let's go to the UK. I want to talk about gov.uk.verify. Gov.uk Verify is a program that was launched by the UK government in 2013. And the idea was to give secure access to citizens to e-government services. Now, they didn't decide to do this themselves. They decided to do this through enrolling private companies, and we're one of the companies providing the service, and asking them to offer ways to verify the identity of a person. They have certified 7 such providers, all private companies, who are able to verify the identity of a person logging into government services. The business model behind that is that the government pays the companies a fixed amount per year for the verification of the identity of an individual. And the business case for the government is cost savings in terms of efficiency, more people access government services online versus physically, avoided fraud. The UK is one of the countries that withholds taxes at the source, just as we're going to try and get pretty soon in France. And then if the government, I've lived in the UK, the government typically withholds a bit too much and needs to reimburse you at the end of the year. Well, you have to prove that you're the person that needs to be reimbursed. So cost savings, fraud reduction, and a more modern image are the benefits for the UK government. This is the beginning of the program. Hundreds of thousands of UK residents are already registered. The government is putting more and more services available online, and this is something that hopefully will be followed by a number of other countries in the world. So 2 very different examples, one in the UK, one in India. There's a number of other examples and lots of future developments in this area. Let me move a little bit more towards technology without being too technical. In the digital world, security and convenience go hand in hand. We're all, maybe not all, but more and more, we're using our fingerprints to unlock our smartphones. I'm sure a number of you are doing that. This is not an iPhone, but Apple says that since they've introduced the fingerprint unlock, 60% of people now secure the access to their smartphones. This is something that's a huge increase over the past situation. What were people doing before? Some people were using a 4 to 6 digit password. Well, not very convenient, especially if you're using your smartphone hundreds of times a day. So most people were actually not securing the access to their smartphones. So through the use of fingerprint recognition, smartphone makers and tablet makers, because it's not only Apple, this is a Samsung device, not the Note 7, people have reached a higher level of security and a higher level of convenience. And this is the ground for security in the digital world. It's being able to combine security with convenience. If it's not convenience, people are not going to use it. If it's not secure, it's not really worth it. So let's discuss how biometrics is particularly well placed for this. Biometrics, fingerprint, facial recognition, iris recognition are the more traditional or the best known cases of biometrics. The increase in accuracy has been tremendous. Today, facial recognition is more secure than a 4-digit password. Iris and fingerprint recognition are secure at 1 to 100,000. What does that mean? Well, that means that if you either show your fingerprints or your irises, there's less than 1 in 100,000 chance that the verification would mistake you for someone else. This is very, very highly secure. This is the type of security that we need in today's world. And it's also very convenient. It's something that you can walk to a gate and be recognized and checked against a document. You can do a selfie check on your smartphone. This is what I will attempt to do in a minute. You can use your fingerprint either on a sensor or just waving through a device for better speed and cleanliness. So it's a combination of security and convenience. To recap, before I go to my demo, passwords aren't enough. I think we've heard a lot about passwords. They're not very easy to remember. This, okay, so the 6-digit plus 2 characters plus 1 special character password that I changed 84 days ago now needs to be changed to a new password that's different from the last 12 passwords I've used on the system. That's just a nightmare, yeah? And it's not very secure. Biometrics can be privacy by design. I'm going to stay a couple minutes on this because, especially for people in France, with the ongoing debate on the national identity database or file that was proposed by the previous government and is being put in place by the current government, there's a lot of discussions around this. How can biometrics be privacy by design? Well, if my photo is securely stored on my smartphone, for example, on the chip of my smartphone, or if it's securely stored in the chip of my passport or of my national identity card. Can't do that in France. The national identity card is not an electronic identity card in France. That's the case in most developed countries, but not in France. But let's imagine there would be a chip and my data would be stored there securely. Then, just by reading the information on either the card or the device and comparing it to my information, my biometrics, the system can say, the device or the card can say, yes, this is the right person, or no, this is not the right person. This avoids having to go and access any type of central database. This avoids having to go into the cloud. This avoids having to go access a database in the cloud. It's much more respectful of privacy, and it's very secure. So this is a Very important point, and I'm sure I'll have questions afterwards on that. No one else has your unique biometric. That's pretty straightforward. And only proper identification, I guess it's what I've tried to prove through the course of this presentation, only proper identification ensures solid authentication versus an attribute like username, password, or another attribute. So let me move to the dangerous part of this presentation, the demonstration and the selfie check. And in order for you to see in real time what I'm attempting to do, DigiWorld has very nicely asked a technician and a cameraman to come and look at my phone screen. I don't know if you can see the phone screen. Not yet. I'll check when you get. So I'm going to try and authenticate through selfie check. Yeah, you see the phone. I open my application. I'm already enrolled securely. My photo is in there. I'm going to try and authenticate by selfie check, facial recognition, against this photo in the device. It's asking me to turn my face. And authentication successful. This is where I breathe. This was successful. Thank you. Why did it ask me to turn my face slightly? Well, so that I couldn't take the DigiWorld program, for example, and the picture that is on there next to my speech, and show it to the camera. And the camera could say, yeah, okay, it's a picture of the same person. No, I have to show that I'm showing a 3D face, and that this 3D face is the face that is matching the one on my smartphone. This is the very secure authentication, and it respects my privacy because nobody has gone to look at any central database anywhere. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Anne.